So I wanted to give you all a little bit of, I don't call it business advice, because I don't really like that term. Anything can be business advice, I suppose. Maybe just some business advice on maybe some helpful ideas. Let's call it that. Generic helpful ideas that could possibly be applied to business. Specifically to the social media realm. I guess this could actually apply to multiple areas and doesn't actually need to be applied to business itself. It's more of a framework of thinking. I'm not a huge consumer of business content on social medias, but I've seen them, and I've seen the likes of Gary Vee, and I've seen other people talk about how wealthy you need to be, and you gotta do this, and they tell you about their morning routine. You gotta wake up at 1 a.m. and meditate, and then you go back to bed and you start another day or whatever. Hilariously ridiculous things. But the reality is, what they're doing, and even if you don't like what they're saying, they're obviously somewhat successful in terms of their engagement on at least social media and the platform they're operating on. What they're doing and what they're saying isn't always the same. What I mean by that is, when you see someone on social media operate, first and foremost, they've already crossed a barrier that you yourself are probably hesitant to, and that is putting some sort of content out. And the reason why it's so important to put some type of content out is because that content itself is a bit of information. It's like a famous line from Steve Jobs: the most exciting thing about the world is that you can poke it and something pops out. It's something like that. I'm not sure. The idea is that if you do something, there's a cause and effect in the reality we live in. And now what happens is you have input and output, and that input can be measured against that output, and you have information. Very, very basic model of information. Now, the more defined of that input you have and the more defined output you have, the more defined information you have. And so we can use this mediocre YouTube page, that's not even mediocre, this subpar YouTube page as an example, is I try and put content in, and I use it as an opportunity to try a variety of content, not just one specific form of content. And I see what comes out, and I see what kind of works and what doesn't work, and I can mold it in a direction. Now, one of the big mistakes people might make sometimes is, well, twofold. One, investing way too much effort up front into something. If I were to try and make the world's greatest YouTube page, and I just bought a really expensive camera, and I bought lights and all this stuff, and I go $50,000 and build a whole studio, I have a barrier to at least make, not a barrier, but at least a goal that's set to try and make $50,000 back because I've spent it. Versus I already have a phone, and I already have a tripod, and I already have a microphone, so I can sit out here and talk to you guys, and the cost is so low. But the information I put into the video can be of near equal, not effort per se, but near equal input. And because of that, I can measure the output and see if people enjoy these videos or not. This is the same exact thing, kind of life as whole. And so I know people who want to try different things and do different things. They want to move career paths, and sometimes there's an opportunity to make a large jump in a career path, but sometimes there's an opportunity to make a very small jump in a career path that will eventually guide you down the right direction. I think a lot of times people want to make a huge jump in a different direction, and that takes a very, very substantial amount of effort and time and a very large risk. And here's an example of that. Let's say you're a strength coach in college and you want to go into personal training. You might think, I'm a strength coach, I'm accredited, I have a great pedigree, I'm gonna go train a bunch of clients, I'm gonna leave my job, and I'm gonna open up a gym. Well, do you have a list of private clients? Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. So instead of doing that whole large jump, maybe you should just see if you could even train anyone online, first and foremost. If there are clients online that want to be with you, are there local clients that want to be with you? You don't need to open up an entire gym to see if that works. You can just test the waters very easily with very low effort and very low cost and see if that route is substantial. Because maybe you just train one person on the side, train two people on the side, and they start to network, and that starts to grow. And now you can open maybe a facility because you have enough momentum from the public to actually want to do that, instead of just running right away to try and make a very large, risky move. And then hopefully retrospectively work backwards and do it. And this is like some of the silly things I've heard online. People just say like, oh, I buy a Ferrari because, I'm going to hold myself accountable to one day make enough money to pay for this Ferrari or something ridiculous. That's not even reasonable, nor is that probably make me really anxious if I did that. I'm not sure what would provoke me to do such a thing. Another aspect within that realm is you have information output, but then there's a time scale factor. And can you do things that have a quick time scale factor that yield helpful output, I should say. And an example is like a YouTube video, an Instagram page, a social media. You can try a variety of things. And what I always say is if you succeed, you succeed loudly because you have views and people like it. If you fail quietly because no one viewed your stuff in the first place. So there's no such thing as failing loudly. No one will. You think a lot of people will judge you, and people, oh my gosh, he made a failing Instagram page or a YouTube page. No one cares. They didn't watch it in the first place. And so that's some things you got to think about when you make these small adjustments or tweaks, or you go into the world which is now tends to typically operate at a low-hanging fruit, which is social media, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it might be. You don't need to have something so grandiose. And I think another aspect you want to consider is progress relative to you, not relative to others. And so a lot of people will try and excessively pursue something that isn't, I don't want to say not even attainable, but not even within their same genre of possible success. You might see someone who does something really well, and that's not really what you do, or they spent 10 years doing that, so they have a huge pedigree in that background, they have a lot of momentum, and you, after 2 months, don't have that same pedigree momentum, and now you're upset and you want to quit. Versus measuring your progress, and progress could simply be, I made 10 videos. Now, who cares about the views? Because that might be a symptom of your product. It's more like I did this and I accomplished that. And so there's a lot of things that you can think about and consider. And the last one I want to add is your own self evaluation of the process, because a lot of times people will fail before they've failed. They themselves like, oh, I'm done doing that. I don't want to sit out here with a camera on my phone Friday morning and film myself talking to it by myself. Film myself talking to it. I feel crazy. I know people are watching me, and you almost get this weird anxious or self-conscious paranoia. And the people who are just kind of have that removed from themselves typically do a really good job on these things, because they have no restrictions in terms of what they post. I have a friend who's very funny, and he's not, I don't want to say not filtered in a way that's negative, but he's not very conscious. It's not really self-conscious, put it that way. Self-regulated, like maybe others might be, and he puts out really funny TikTok content. And I think a lot of people are funny like him, but they would never put that out of whatever fear that might exist, how it would be self-perceived, and not even perceived by people, but how you think people might think that they feel about you, and so you avoid doing it. And it's this weird cyclic loop. So that's some actual business advice. I'm going to review it. Not business. I don't want to call it business advice. It's not business. It's just whatever advice. Operate advice. It's to have some sort of framework of information, input, output, measurable. The definition of the input, the definition of the output, even the definition of time is really important for measuring those products and progress. Making reasonable, I call it taking a branch, not building a whole new tree. Taking a reasonable step in the next direction that isn't going to entirely change the entire course of everything with massive risk and implications. And maybe there are times that is reasonable, but a lot of times on social media, it makes it really easy to have, navigating pushes like momentum or wind behind the sails. You can build some up before you make that huge push. Identifying important outputs, right? Like the personal training example. Maybe you are trying to want to train, but you can't just say, because I have lots of Instagram followers, people are going to want to train with me. You actually have to have physical clients in person if you want to open something, a physical location to train individuals. There's a lot of things that go into that too, beyond just clients and schedules and all that fun stuff. So like I said, you can take really small steps, and those small steps are not always that exciting, and they don't really have huge yield in the short run, and people kind of quit along the way. But that's actually probably if it's not going to be successful with small steps. I'm not sure if a very large step is going to be the reason or the limiting factor. So I'll keep it there for now. I appreciate you guys listening as always. I hope you enjoy these. I just want to have a little sit down chat with you guys, and you guys feel free to share, subscribe, and like. I'm gonna go finish my coffee now. It's a nice morning out here. The corn, it's a little misty out. You see the fog in the background, cool tree in the background. Enjoy my morning, eat my breakfast, and get ready to go about my day. Appreciate you guys. Take care. Bye.